Hello everybody, Andrew Hutchings here, and this video is about, it's not all about lifting weights. Fitness isn't all about going in the gym as much as you possibly can and lifting as much weight as you possibly can as often as you can. That may be a big part of it, and that's a big part of it for me. I love going in the gym and lifting heavy weights. I like doing it as often as I can. But reality is that if you do that, you're driving yourself into the ground. Because if you just continuously lift a bunch of heavy weights and ignore some other things, you're most likely going to end up with muscle imbalances, little injuries, little injuries that now lead to muscles not having the right activation. Maybe you have bad posture and it's wearing on things. I guess that would fall under injuries. You have too much tension, which can again cause injuries, because when muscles are tight, they pull on tendons more, and they can pull on bone structures, which pull ligaments more. When things are tight, they're more strained, and they can cause damage. So for a lot of reasons, if you only focus on lifting weights as much as you can with all your extra time, it's not the best thing to do. Today, for example, is a great example day for what you do need to do sometimes. So today I was intending on jogging, but I ended up doing a very slow jog on sand, not wet sand. Wet sand is pleasant to jog on, but on the dry sand, and it was a slow jog, but the act of doing it and having to use muscles I don't usually use, I really got some lower back muscles around here. And I got my traps, actually. You wouldn't expect to get your traps. And my cousin, who I was jogging with, his neck was also feeling strain. I don't know if that's because he was jogging with poor form or good form. I don't know if for me it's bad form or good form. But for one reason or another, we both activated muscles that are very underused. And then we also did some climbing on some ropes and stuff, which is good in a multitude of ways. It's good for stretching your body out when you're hanging from ropes, and it's good to get used to your body and able to work with your... In the gym, we're used to moving weights instead of our own body. It's much more natural, actually, to move your own body. Like, it's natural to move things, but also move your body. Like, when you're doing handstands, or gymnastics stuff, or climbing on things, or climbing over things. When you're maneuvering your body. And then when I got home today, I don't do it too much, because normally I don't have that much time and I'm focused on other things, but I just enjoyed a lot of stretching. Went in my backyard, my parents' backyard, and I think I started out by just like standing kind of like this and getting a stretch, but I did lots of leg stretches, and stretching isn't always doing exactly specific stretches that you would think of. For example, one that I do that many people might think is like doing a stretch wrong is, you know, when you have your legs spread and you bend over to touch your toes. Well, sometimes I actually bend my knees as I'm bending over with my back straight, and it really pulls the hamstrings. Whereas if you just bend straight, it does get them, and it's a good stretch, but when you bend, like I'm doing it, you can't see it, but you can really stretch your hamstrings tight if you bend your knees. Whereas normally you think you don't want to bend your knees, because it's cheating. But you can do all sorts of stretches, like you're just standing and you just plant one leg and you just kind of lean on it in a certain, you just gotta feel where there's tension and stretch it out. There's no such thing as stretches and non-stretches. Certain stretches are very popular, but you can stretch in so many different ways that you can't imagine. Maybe you can imagine, but most people wouldn't. But I guess there are some people also who don't even know the standard stretches. By standard stretches, I mean stuff like this, when you do like a one-leg lunge, when you do bending down, touching your toes. But it's very important to get this tension out, or else it's going to keep building up and pulling on things, and when it's pulling, it's tearing. And that tearing over time can lead to, well, a significant tear. It can also lead to inflammation. It can also lead to a structural change that's not good, like your posture could change. This is a common one. It could lead to certain muscles being used more than others. And something I hadn't thought of too much before, but like over a year ago, I was stretching in a doorway actually. And it's important that you're not stretching aggressively. You really need to like just be very relaxed and take it slow and enjoy the process. But I was stretching in a doorway kind of aggressively, which you don't want to do. And I overstretched my right pec, and I overextended my right bicep tendon that runs into the chest muscle. And that thing is still kind of messed up to this day. I mean, it's not my longest injury. I've had much worse injuries that lasted a lot longer, but a year for an injury is a good amount of time by most people's standards. And when you get injuries, sometimes, like for example, my chest, it's possible that they heal, but if you don't focus on using that muscle that's connected, or whatever the injury might be, if you don't use the nearby tissues, it's possible that while it was injured, your body or you, consciously or unconsciously, were avoiding using that area and you were using other muscles to get around it, basically. And now, even though it's healed, you're still consciously or subconsciously using, probably it's subconscious, using other muscles and avoiding using that one. Like for me, it's this one. So you need to focus on activating it to get it back up to a good working condition. Because if you don't focus on that and you just go heavy, you're going to be using muscles that you shouldn't be using, and you're not going to be using certain ones that you should be using, and eventually something's going to give, because your body is meant to execute movements in certain ways. And when it's changed because you're using different things, it's not good. So you need to spend time not just lifting heavy weights as often as you can, but paying attention to your little injuries, getting them healed, paying attention to the tension in your body and making sure it's not overly tense, paying attention to old injury sites and making sure that the muscles and everything around them are being used properly. And a range of motion, that comes with stretching, but you want to make sure that you have range of motion and that you can just maneuver your own body. I would hate personally to just spend 20 years working out every day in the gym and then it's like I can barely move, I can't climb over things, I just can't use my body well. It's not all about just lifting, it's a big part of it. But you do need to focus on this other stuff, or else you're going to end up with some sort of problem that's going to make life not as enjoyable. Or it's going to actually retard your progress in the gym, what you're spending most of your time on. You're not going to be able to go heavier if you're not using a muscle because it got injured a year ago. You need to start using it again, and then you can go heavier. You're not going to go heavier if you've got some injuries and they're just being beaten over and over and they're not ever fully healing. Perhaps you've got bad flexibility or too much tension and you just keep building up tension and tension, you get an injury, and then you can't progress in the gym. For one reason or another, it's good sometimes to maybe do things like in cycles, but I don't know if you need to do a cycle so much for it as just take some time off once in a while to focus on the other stuff. I was actually thinking that it would be good for me to do like a cycle of swimming. Because swimming, you're getting lots of good range of motion, low impact, and you're using your muscles. So you're helping to relieve tension because not everything's under stress because of less gravity. You're helping to get good range of motion, get good blood flow. Probably we should all be swimming very often, but we don't all swim very often. Yeah. It's probably good for most of us, but at least try to do it once in a while, or at least I'm going to try to do it once in a while. And just mixing things up is important. It's the same way that your diet. If you eat really good foods, but you eat the same ones every single day, you're gonna end up deficient in something, because if you do everything the same all the time, you can't cover everything. Same way with exercising. You can focus on lifting heavy weights in the gym most of the time, but you gotta mix it up and do some jogging, maybe do some stretching, some smaller muscle stability training, some agility training. Yeah. And I think I've said enough in this video. Hope you like this video. And also, one more thing I fall into this trap is when you're really into just getting bigger and stronger. You're always making yourself bigger. You also have to remember that it's important to give up the gains just a little bit sometimes and let yourself get smaller and lose some fat. Like, I myself have too much intra-abdominal fat. It makes my abdomen stick out, even though there's not that much fat. I mean, there is a good amount of fat on the exterior, as you can see. But it's also sticking out a lot versus being more inward. And that's just not the best for overall health, and it's also not the best for flexibility and range of motion. Especially if you get more built up and then it's like you can't really make your body like that. So even though it can hinder the gains in the gym for a little while, it's important to dial things down and keep good balance and overall well-being. Hope you like this video. I've got like 450 other videos. You can check out my website, andrewhutchings.org, for consultations. Anything but medical consultations, because that's illegal. But you can hire me to give you medical information and my opinion, and then you can decide what you're going to do with that. I just can't tell you that you should do X, Y, and Z. I can say, well, I would do this. I can say, well, look at all these studies that say X, Y, and Z. But I can't say you should do that. That's for you to decide. In fact, that's how I think it should be when people go to doctors. So it's not really a big difference. But yes, I can't actually give you medical advice. And my book is for sale, A Systematic Guide to Defeating Tendinitis. You can buy it from me or from Ingram Spark, but you get a better deal if you buy it from me, and I make more money, so why not buy it from me? You'll really like this book, unless you love tendinitis. But even if you love tendinitis, maybe just get it and don't read it. And then maybe someday you might change your mind and not like your tendinitis, and then you have it on hand and you can quickly get rid of your tendinitis. It's good to have, whether you like tendinitis or not. And my Instagram is natural_true_fitness.